Scary story time about how my stalker of 5 years ended up being somebody very close to me, and they also essayed me. I'm now in my late 30s, married and pregnant. This all started happening when I graduated from college. My senior year of college was super traumatizing. I started receiving threatening, scary messages on Facebook. I told the dean of the school and my teachers, and they tried to help me but couldn't find the person. In the messages, they would say that if they ever saw me walking by myself that I needed to be careful, and that they would hurt me if they ever saw me with other men. This made me become isolated. I was afraid to go anywhere but class. When my parents found out, they insisted I move back home but finish college. After I moved back home, everything calmed down. I stopped getting the messages and it was an instant relief. While I was in college, I had made several friends. They all worried about me and constantly looked after me. The boys in my friend group would walk me to and from class. Anytime I went to the library or run errands, my girlfriends would come with me. So after I moved back home, they would all come to visit me. My parents were super grateful to them for taking care of me and giving me their time. After finally graduating college, I thought the nightmare was over, but it was far from over. Around 2012, I decided to open an Instagram account. This is when the threatening messages started up again. They would leave comments under my pictures saying that they were watching me. This person was threatening to kidnap me in messages. They threatened to slash my tires, and they even threatened to hurt my parents if I ever decided to date anyone. When I showed my parents the messages, they decided to hire a private detective. After investigating for 2 months, they basically found nothing. All they could say was that the person who owned the account lived in the US. A few weeks after that, I found a note on my windshield. When I opened the note, it had really graphic drawings on it, and on the other side there was a poem written for me. The poem talked about how beautiful I was and how beautiful I would look on my wedding day. At the end of the poem, it was signed by someone named Paul. The handwriting was really specific. I decided to give it to the personal investigator to see if he could find anything out. But again, nothing came of it. Once again, I isolated myself from the outside world. My parents would bring me home food. I was even able to get a job working from home. One day while I was home alone, I noticed an open window in the kitchen. But as I got closer, I could see a man's hand resting on the windowsill. When I see the open window, I try not to freak out. But that's when I spot a man's hand resting on the windowsill. It's as if he was trying to climb in. I screamed so loud and pressed the panic button on our alarm. The panic button would instantly inform my parents that I was in danger. It would also let the cops know that I was in danger. I could see the man's head by the window, so I told him that the cops were already on their way. He then slammed the window shut and ran away. When the cops came, they could see that he had cut the wire to the window so the alarm wouldn't sound. The cops tried to get fingerprints from the window but couldn't get any. I told them that I'd had a stalker and that I was sure it was them. That's when the cops told me that there was nothing they can do because this person didn't actually hurt me. After that, we installed cameras around the perimeter of the house. I started going shooting to learn how to use a weapon, and I even started training in kickboxing. Everything calmed down for the next year. I was finally able to feel normal and safe in my own home. This is when I decided to have a social life again. I started going out with friends and even went on a few dates. On one occasion, my friends and I all went to a party. Unfortunately, I got pretty wasted. It was the first time I ever felt safe at a party and was actually having fun. I passed out on a bed, and when I woke up, my shirt was open. I told one of my friends, but we couldn't be sure what had actually happened. I didn't feel any pain, but I definitely knew someone had opened my shirt. My group of friends took me home and I tried to just forget about it. But literally the following day, I get a message again on Instagram, and it's from the same exact person. Even though I had blocked them a million times, they kept making accounts to get in contact with me. But this time they told me that they had so much fun with me last night. And that's when I came to the realization. The person who opened my shirt last night was the same person sending the messages. I mean, how could they know that any of this happened? Then he sent me the scariest picture. It was me at the party, passed out on my bed. After they sent me the picture of me passed out on the bed with my shirt open, I realized that I must have known this person and that they had been hiding underneath my nose the entire time. When I asked my friends if they saw anything weird at the party, they all said no, and there was no way to find out where the picture came from. After I blocked the person once again, I didn't get messages for a few months. During that time, 2 of my friends got married. They had been boyfriend and girlfriend throughout all our time in college, and they were the ones that would take care of me along with our other friends. I was one of the bridesmaids and it was actually really fun. I was able to get my mind off of things while I helped plan the wedding. I decided to bring a cute notebook and have everyone sign it that day. At the end of the day, I would give it to the bride and the groom. After the wedding, we all went to the reception. That's when I passed the notebook around and had everyone sign it and leave a note. I also gave it to the bride to sign and the groom. Before I gave it to them at the end of the night, I decided to look through the pages and see what everyone wrote. When I finally got to the last pages, I checked the groom's signature, and it looked almost exactly the same as the one from the poem all those years ago. My stomach dropped and I knew instantly that it was him. It made so much sense. He was always around during college. He knew my schedule really well because he and the other guys would walk me to and from class. He also knew the safety measures my family and I took. I felt extremely violated. I considered him one of my best friends who had my best interest. And this whole time, he was the one stalking me for years. But I had to do something before they left on their honeymoon that night. I quickly ran home and grabbed the note to compare the signatures. When I got back to the wedding, I showed the bride both the signatures. She was shocked because they were exactly the same. We both confronted him, but he denied it. My best friend got the marriage annulled. He still denies everything. Our friend group doesn't talk to him, and he even moved a state away. But since then, I haven't gotten any messages, and it's been years now. We all know it's him, but he doesn't admit it. I'm not sure how to prove that he was a stalker and possibly SA'd me. What should I do?
Am I the asshole for not sharing my grandmother's inheritance with my father? When I was 13 years old, my mother found out my father was having an affair and he got the other woman pregnant. After this came out, my father confessed he was in love with the other woman and wanted to leave my mother. She obviously was heartbroken and didn't know what to do. We had moved to a new state with my father for work, so she had no family around. My father dropped us like a bad habit soon after this came out. He attempted to keep a relationship with me, but ultimately his new family was, quote unquote, his priority, as he said. Tough to understand for a 13-year-old, but whatever. If he didn't want me, I wasn't going to need him. So my mother and we moved on. But the only way we were able to move on was with the help of my grandmother, my father's mother. She always loved us and was appalled with what her son had done to us. He stopped seeing her as well for the most part. We became very close over the years, seeing each other for special occasions and holidays while her son was nowhere to be found. She even helped my mom out monetarily when we needed it too. Unfortunately, the years caught up with her and she developed colon cancer. Advanced late stage, her decline was rapid. Within a few months, she was in hospice. Days before she passed, she asked me to call her son to come see her as she knew her time was coming. He had only been to see her a couple times since she had gotten sick. When he came by, I was visiting as we did every few days, and he acted like I was some random person. Grandma asked him to come back tomorrow, but he said he'd be back in a few days. She passed 4 days later without him coming back, despite my calls and texts to come. She went peacefully with me and my mom by her side. That was hard. I miss her every day. She was my guardian angel most of my life, and I know she continues to watch over me. After the services, where my father did show up and made a big scene and made it all about himself, we were contacted by her lawyer. Unbeknownst to everybody, she left me, her house, and a good amount of money, $200,000. I had no idea she did that, but in the will, there was a note to me from her that said, "You are worth it. Love, Grandma. She's amazing." Also, in her will, she left my father exactly $1 as his inheritance. When he found out, he went ballistic, blowing up my phone all the time, demanding I give him, quote unquote, his house and his money. His new wife and son were messaging me a lot, and his son was writing on social media that I manipulated my grandmother. My father apologized and said he was under a lot of stress because he's in debt and was banking on this money to come in for bills and to send his son to college. That made me feel bad, like maybe I should give him something. I've thought a lot about it, and I don't think I'm going to share anything with him. And I kind of think that makes me an a-hole because it seems like they really do need it. But on the other hand, screw him. I don't know. Am I the asshole? And the top comment coming in with 40,000 upvotes. Not the asshole. The reason she left him $1 was to make it clear to the court in case he tried to challenge the will that she hadn't forgotten to include him, but that she intended to disinherit him. She knew that her son would try to take the money she left you. It is very common practice to leave $1 when disinheriting someone. Respect your grandmother's wishes and don't give your father a dime. Edit to add, yes, people, I'm very aware that this isn't necessary to disinherit someone, and that it comes with the added annoyance of having the disinherited person be named a beneficiary. Just because it's unnecessary doesn't mean that people don't do it. And it's still very effective in making the deceased's intentions clear. Next comment, 25,000 upvotes. Clearly, Grandma was pretty sharp. And if she thinks OP is worth it, that's all that matters, not the asshole. But still, he is your dad. The boy is your half brother. Blood does matter and life is too short to remain angry. They have money problems, so it would be a nice olive branch if you helped them out. Maybe take an example from grandma and send $1. That way, you've doubled their inheritance. A 100% increase is not to be sniffed at. Next comment, 13,000 upvotes. LOL, I thought this was going a different way and was so relieved when I got to the end. Not the asshole.
My friend's little brother got caught smoking Spider-Man's girlfriend, and his mom called me to have the talk with him. Like, she wants me to talk to him because his brother got caught with it ages ago, so, like, his brother's not gonna take it seriously, you know what I mean? So they want me to have the conversation. I don't have fucking siblings. I don't care about other people. What the fuck? So I was just like, okay. So basically, she gave me the rundown. Basically, she just went to the country club. They live in a different country. I'm not gonna say which one. By the way, this is a part of this punishment. Like, his mom literally said, I want him to see this on TikTok tomorrow and feel embarrassed. So, sorry, kid. Basically, she went to the country club with her mom, and her mom hasn't seen John in a while, like his grandma. So they see him in a distance, and they were like, weird. He was supposed to be at, Jack's house. What the fuck is he doing here? So she goes and follows him. He goes behind the bathrooms, and, he did what he had to do with his friends, okay? And his mom obviously busted him, took him home, and yelled at him, did all that. Had the conversation with him, but she thinks he's not fully into it, you know what I mean? So she wants me to have the conversation. So I call him, and I'm like, hey, but I tried to be like, I have to play it cool, you know what I mean? So I was just like, hey. And he was just like, hey, how are you, Deep? I was like, no, how are you? No, none of that. What the fuck were you thinking? And he was just like, I'm so sorry, I did it just a few times, I promise. I was like, hold on, you didn't say you did it a couple times. You said you did it once. You said that was your first time. How many times have you done it, John? What the fuck? And he was just like, does... he was like, if I did it twice in one day, does it count? Bro, I had to mute myself. I was like, I don't... I was just like, and I muted myself, fucking died laughing, and then unmuted myself, and I was like, John, of fucking course it counts as twice, you asshole. So how many times have you done it? And I just, made him feel a little bad, because he is 17. You should not be fucking doing this shit if you're 17. Like, stop. So I was, yelling at him, whatever, scared him off of it. I was just like, this is factual. Your brain does not develop until 25, so, keep that in mind. So I was just like, so your brain doesn't develop. Do you want to be dumb when you're older? You don't want to get married? You don't want to have kids? Because he really wants a family when he's older. So I just, kept fucking with him. And he got really scared, and he started, tearing, his voice got all choked up and whatever. I feel bad for doing this. But his brother told me to go in. I'm just saying. So then I call his mom, and I was just like, hey, I definitely think he understood the message. I, zhuzhed it up. I was just he was sobbing on the phone. He feels so guilty. He feels so bad. I'm so sorry. I promise you he's never going to do it again. And she was just like, how many times has he done it? Be honest. And I was like, honestly, listen, I didn't lie. Well, she's gonna watch this now, I guess. Okay, sorry, queen, now. It's fine, whatever. But she was just like, how many times has he done it? I was like, listen, he asked me, does it count if he did it twice in one day? And I said, of course it doesn't. That's just once. It doesn't count. And she was like, yeah, you're right.
I used to be a pilot. I flew private jets just in the country, not anywhere international. And I never did anything commercial. So I've never flown any of you, I promise. But one time I had this one client who was a billionaire. His parents, he was the heir to some oil refinery or something. I really didn't pay attention to most of my clients, but this guy spoke so loud, which I will get into, that I could hear fucking everything he was saying. And one day I picked him up at his place in Connecticut. He had one of those fly-in communities. So I flew, landed in front of his house. He got on, whatever, and we were flying to Los Angeles that day because he was doing a business thing or whatever. So my plan was pick him up in Connecticut, scoot over to LA. I spend my weekend in LA, and then by the time he's ready to go home to New York, I would have been able to do a couple of their flights just on the West Coast, you know what I mean? So I contacted a couple of my clients, and I was like, hey, if you need a pilot, I will be in town from Saturday to Monday afternoon. Let me know if you need me, So this client talks really loud. He's one of those people where his voice just fills a room, and not in a commanding, charismatic way, in a dear God, get a hearing aid way. And I had overheard him for the past couple months talking about getting his pilot's license and, practicing flying. He just bought a helicopter. He was collecting planes like they were fucking Matchbox cars. So suddenly I get like a little knock on the back of my seat, and I turn around and I take my headphones off and I was like, hi, how can I help you? And he said, can I sit up front? I was like, okay, sure. So he sits down next to me and we're shooting the shit. And, he's asking me about why I wanted to become a pilot, what my training was like, how that whole experience was. And I'm explaining to him what the instruments and the gauges do and stuff like that. And just having a really nice conversation. And then in the middle of me explaining something about like one of the gauge clusters, he stops me and goes, wait, can I get you a cup of coffee? Normally, I try not to take stuff from my clients' supplies because A, I'm working for them, and B, I bring my own things. I'm able to stop before, I'm able to stop after. Sometimes I can stop during, if we have a layover or something. And I really try just to keep that type of stuff separate for my own peace of mind and for professionalism. This man, however, has always been very generous. I mean, he gives me like Christmas bonuses or whatever. And throughout the years that I worked with him, he was very, very, very kind every time we worked together. So I happily accepted this cup of coffee, which was a mistake. We're drinking coffee. We go back to having conversation. I'm asking about his kids and his wife and the business and whatever. And the next thing I know, I wake up in the cabin. Once I finally come to, I get up and I rush back into the cockpit and I go, what are you doing? And I look over. We're supposed to be going to California. I'm over the Gulf of Mexico.